No.
Nope.
No.
All right, guys, we're gonna just. This is not gonna be too long, but it's a couple things I want to make sure that we're straight on here. I think that works. Okay. All right. Is that recording? Can you see us okay from back here? Oh, we got people over here too. Okay. Okay.
Mark and Justin. Adjust them up, tilt them up.
Oh yeah, go to the
Well, no, I'm gonna probably be standing because I want to make sure everyone can see us. So, okay, a couple things I want to talk to you guys about real quick.
Where's Josh?
I don't know. He might have wanted to go get something or something. So,
You at the building?
Josh,
Okay.
he's over there. Okay. Yeah, he'll come in. So, yesterday, I was thinking about this, and I know we had talked about this before, but we have a lot of new people here, and it's real important that when you're you're dealing with realtors, especially or home builders, that regardless whether you're an LOA, whether you're a processor or a loan officer, or whatever your job title is, that there's certain stuff that you need to be very careful about what you tell them. You never ever want to talk down about the company, or say that was my processor's fault, or put blame or liability on the company. Okay. Because you can really put yourself and the company in a lot of jeopardy if you let's say that your processor forgets to, you forget to do something. And I'm not talking about something minor, but when we're talking about someone closing on their house, and somebody forgets to do something, and it needs to be very, very scripted about what you're talking about.
I can't tell you how many times I've said, I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to comment. I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen. I can't tell you the whole story, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, so it's something that you need to be real careful about when you're talking to realtors or builders or whoever you're talking to, if they're asking for an update. And the other thing is that you can't tell the realtors detailed information about the customer. That's against privacy laws.
I mean, you tell them that they're got outstanding docs and help me out. You can say
Okay.
that.
If the realtor is calling up here asking, pressuring you guys, there's nothing you can do. You can't discuss those things with them.
Can you discuss things like that? There's a couple situations where I've had the realtor and the borrower together asking for information. They're like, they see everything. They're submitting the bank statements together.
If they've given authorization,
Yeah,
if they've given
that's what
authorization of the realtor.
That's not the norm, though.
Yeah.
But you just need to be real careful. You can't be telling the realtor everything, every single detail about what we're doing about the loan process. Okay, it's very dangerous to do that. So, you need to keep it very, keep it to the bullet points about the loan. Let's say the loan's in processing, it's in review, or it's in underwriting. Don't talk about what they're looking at, what they're doing.
A lot of times, too, that, where's Michael? Don't need it. Where's,
They're in process.
Okay,
Over there.
well, the process, they've already talked to the processor, especially these realtors, man. They've already talked to the processor. They didn't really like what they hear, or they're doubting it, so then they call you. And they ask you the exact same daggone questions. And if you get just one word twisted, they're gonna take and run with it. You spend 3 days trying to get out of that mess.
Yeah. So, but you don't want to ever talk down about the company, the other your workers, and let's say that the loan is transferred you from another loan officer. Talk about that loan officer. Don't do that.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
You can't, because you definitely don't want to talk about that. And so the thing is that if like I said, if I have to get involved, and there's a lot of issues and there's a lot of fire in the loan, then I'm probably going to reassign that loan, because I don't, it's a waste of my resources to get involved and put out your fire. And so I gave you a deal. I want you to handle it. If you can't handle it, you show me you don't know what you're doing, and I'm going to give it to someone that knows what they're doing. And so, but it's just, there's a certain way to say stuff and there's a certain way not to do things. But you got to be real careful about when you're talking to these people, because what they're going to do is take the information, and I promise you they're going to use it against you. Okay? So, what we're talking about right now, Josh, is whenever they're talking to realtors, everybody, and different people, builders or title companies, you have to be very careful and selective about what you say, and you can't just be an open book to them and tell them every single thing that we're doing on the loan process.
If there's something going on, don't, and you know everything. Well, they know 2 or 3 things, and I guess sometimes it's second nature for me to want to fill in the gaps. Don't do it, man. Don't tell them nothing that they don't already know. Don't add to it.
But is there some clear things, like, I mean, because right now I think if I'm new, I'm thinking from what these guys are saying is very vague. So is there some clear bullet points like that they should not say at all?
Can't talk credit to, I mean, it's certain, like you said, the Privacy Act, man, we know we can't talk credit to a realtor when we're saying why we have to get an extension or whatever, why we're looking for it. And even if they do call with the customer on the phone and the realtor, you have to ask the customer, do I have permission to speak openly about your file? And if they give me verbal consent, I hope that's good enough as like written consent, because then I'll tell them, you know, this is the reason that we're having to do more work on your file. Your file has been a challenging file because of this, that, and the other. But I don't get into rescoring and all that kind of stuff on the phone with the realtor.
No, what about if this happens, that Joe pre-approves the client and there's a rescore that needs to be done, and the rescore is not done yet, they're under contract, and then Prisciliano comes back around, the realtor calls Prisciliano, asks for Prisciliano for an update, says, well, that loan's not ready yet, there's getting a rescore done.
Yeah.
Well, now you got a big fire.
What you say is there's documents that still need verification.
This is what I'm talking about, where they're gonna come back and there's gonna be a hailstorm if that kind of conversation happens, because they're, like Joe or Mark said, they're gonna check with him, and then they're gonna go check with him, and they're gonna see if the stories make sense.
Well, I mean, if you pre-approve somebody, well, my letter says documentation still needs verification if it says pre-qual. But if you have pre-approved somebody, you pre-qual somebody, and the letter doesn't say the right thing, and then the next thing you know, they're under contract, missing dates and all this, and then you're still trying to rescore them because they rescored it. I mean, it's a snowball effect, and you're giving them all this, and they're saying, well, why the hell did you pre-approve them anyway? How did they get under contract? And that's negligent. You know,
Yeah, but what about if they call and talk to Mark, and Mark says, no, the loan's in processing, and then they get in touch with the processor, and they say, I don't even have the loan. I don't know, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So you see, these are things I'm talking about where, you know, you gotta just be real, and obviously that's an internal communication thing, where we need to do a much better job at that. But these are things I'm talking about, little details like this, like especially like with closing, when it's getting closer to closing, and and that's when, you know, the emotions flare up and things are happening. They're gonna check with you. They're gonna check with, you know, other people they've talked to in the process. And I mean, this is what I was dealing with all day yesterday. Is that
4 different people.
Yeah.
All about the one loan and hitting from all different angles, and not just hitting you, hitting everybody, just whoever they could get a hold of.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing, is just this. That's gonna be put to bed. We can't deal with that. That's ridiculous. So, and that leads me to say that when we get a loan in, the contract in, we're gonna be reviewing your file. And we're gonna tell you what your file needs when that contract comes in, and that stuff has to get fixed before that loan ever goes to the LOA.
And when I'm going around to the LOAs now, that's one of the first things that I'm saying is if you get a contract that's not in that window, and I talked to Josh about it a little bit ago, starting Monday, it's gonna go right back to you.
If you have the wrong close date, the concessions aren't right,
Yeah,
or whatever.
you don't have, if it's FHA and you're showing $11,000 to close, and they got $1,500 in the bank, gotta know. You can't send out a disclosure assuming that there's gonna be a seller credit, and assuming that we're gonna adjust the sale price, and assuming this and assuming, can't happen.
No, so we need to be checking that right when that contract comes in, and making sure, from what I've seen, for the most part, the contracts today that I looked at were okay. They were decent. You know, there was some of the stuff. Some of them need a little bit of stuff, but wasn't anything like off the wall. But we haven't gone through all of them yet. So, but yes, when you have a contract in, we're going to be checking with you. We want to review it and make sure that it's in line with the requirements. So, and also whenever you deny someone, Josh talked about this a couple weeks ago, there's a certain way that you have to handle that. Mark, how do you deny somebody?
Are you talking about like with the letter that goes out, or
Well,
how do
over
you
the phone.
talk to them?
How do you talk? What do you tell them over the phone when you deny someone?
I'll warm up.
That's,
I'll give them a call.
that's just exactly what I pointed out to him. Have a plan.
Yeah,
Have a plan.
I mean, I'll call and let people sort of give them an indication that maybe there's a problem or there's something. Like, I don't just call them out of the blue and be like, "You're done." I'll let them know that we're working on trying to get something resolved and give at least like an indication that something might be an issue, but that we're working on it. And then, that I'll let them know that usually I'll like in the morning or something, I'll let them know that, and then be like, we should have an update by the end of the day. And then, so it kind of gives it time to sink in, so you're not just like coming out of the blue. Like,
In the morning, are you giving like a segue or something?
yeah, basically like a segue, almost like I'll let them know like that there's an issue and that we're working on resolving it and that we're coming. I mean, it depends on the situation, but
Yeah. I would say I'll just.
I wouldn't do that for
I'll
everyone.
rip the Band-Aid right off. I'm not going to.
But no, I don't do that. I don't do that for everyone. But if it's it just depends on the issue. But I always contact the borrower first before the realtors, and then I'll usually call the realtors and then anyone else who's like involved with it to just like have communication with everyone. So if it's like and it really depends on the situation. So like some situations, my goal is to kind of make sure that everybody who's involved gets like the information that they need. So if the listing agent's always hitting me up, I'll call them as well afterwards, just to make sure everybody's kind of in the loop with what's going on, what the next steps are.
Okay, that's the overall process. But as far as like being scripted or certain things that you're going to say or not say, because this is another area too. There's actually a notice of action taken, and there are certain things encompassed in the form. You really
The
want
denial letter.
the denial letter, and you want to really stay true to that. I wouldn't go into real specific details about the denial, because that could be used against you later too.
Saying that we should have caught that.
Right.
So if you just give something general off of those 4 or 5 items on there, insufficient credit, whatever the 4 are, doesn't meet guidelines. You just say that, and then they can't pick that apart.
And then you can't. And they say, well, why? Well, that's just what it is.
It's
If you start breaking down like, well, because you had this thing on your credit, well, Jason, hey, you pre-approved me,
You
man.
pulled my credit 2 months ago, man. Why did that
Yeah,
just
well, I
come
mean, but I don't understand. That's you pre-approved me. You saw that, man. Now you're opening up a whole thing with them.
Even though you worked with it for 2 months and they're so grateful that you worked with it for 2 months trying to bail them out of this and fix the situation. Well, now you're the bad guy because it didn't work.
You ever notice, like, whenever I don't know if you guys ever apply for anything and you get denied, and then they say, well, I want to know why. And they say, we're going to send you a letter.
Yeah.
They never tell you why. And then the letter just says some little thing because insufficient credit.
Based on what we saw on Equifax.
Yeah, you don't even know what the reason is because they're trying to protect themselves. Okay, you start doing a Dear John letter why they got denied, they're just going to turn around and use that against you. Okay, you can't do that, man, and I don't want to see it. I do not want to see that happen.
And even if you are dead wrong, caught with your hand right in the cookie jar, do not apologize. Do not say you're sorry. Do not show remorse. Do not. It's an admission of guilt.
Yeah, you don't. That's one thing is that you always want to, you don't want to put yourself in that type of situation where that you're admitting guilt.
You say, I'm so sorry this is happening. I'm doing my best to speed this up. You say stuff like that, but don't say anything like specific about a specific detail of the loan, and apologize for what may or may not have went wrong. I mean, you got to think about you're protecting yourself, but also the company, because you are Bank of England.
So these are, Josh, anything you want to add on these things?
Steven, how did you deny one of your customers?
Huh?
What did you tell them?
Which one?
The one today? One today, yesterday?
Well, I need to deny Andrew Pasek, but that's why I was asking for the letter, because I want to know if I just go strictly off of what is checked.
On the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, you almost see the letter has got just check boxes, and the compliance officer will go in and just check the boxes to indicate the reasons. But you don't ever, say your score didn't come up to what we should have been, or your score is 600, and or you didn't have 3 months reserves or whatever, or 4 months reserves. That's way too specific. If you're talking to the borrower, look, there's some credit issues that we weren't able to overcome. That's enough. You know what I'm saying? Limited credit experience, and that's actually one of the reasons on the list. Anyway, those are you want to keep it kind of vague.
Yeah, don't go into the details, and it's kind of like when, you see those movies or something when they break up with somebody and they say it's just not working out, and someone starts crying, and, they say, why, and then you just say it's not working out. You gotta go. So, it's the same thing. So, I mean, you start getting, if you let them rope you in, then you ain't leaving, so, and then you're gonna try and find a loan program for them. So you just gotta be real careful with that. So the other thing is, hey, when you get a clear to close, there's a preliminary CD that goes out. Does everyone know what that is? Okay. Is that the final CD? What happens? So tell me, what do you do, Casey, when your crazy customer calls you?
Explain to them that there are certain reconciliations done through the title company, and that it's just an estimate. So.
Okay.
Using big words.
So what do they need to do with that?
What does who need to do that?
Well, the borrower, they need to sign it, or what do they need to look at it, or what do they need to do?
Close your eyes and sign it.
Yeah.
As quick as possible.
I
Get the
tell
clock
them
started.
that it's to speed up the process. We don't want the title company, balancing out the CD when we're actually triggering the TRID to start, the 3-day waiting period to start. So just sign it. Don't look at the only thing that's gonna be done on that point, I think, is just the locked rate in most cases. So don't worry about the numbers, just sign it. That'll start our 3-day period with the title company, and that gives them time to, to balance the CD. And by the time, we make the final approval of the numbers, it has everything on there, and then we send it to you for the actual final approval. Then when you sign that one, you'll know exactly what you gotta bring to closing, and what all the closing costs, everything's gonna be in there in that final one. But I branded that as well. If I didn't explain it to them, they looked at me cross-eyed and started saying,
Yep.
I thought my closing costs were this. And I'm like, well, actually it is, but that's just a preliminary.
I tell them before, and when they ask me anyway, I say, this is to start the clock so you can close on time.
That's the main thing.
That's it.
Start the clock, that 3-day trade
These
period.
numbers may or may not be right. There could be 2 or 3 more of these bouncing back and forth, but this clock starts the clock so you can close on time.
Okay. Yes, that's good. One thing I just got back I think it was the last 60 closings we had. That we do a feedback survey at the end of the closing, and I think most of the people are on there that work here currently, and for the most part, it's a customer survey, kind of like our review, but it has more of a larger sample. And for the most part, I'd say 80% was positive.
Yeah.
80% was positive. There was about 20% that was negative. And I'm gonna send it out to everybody to read.
These are closings.
Yes, these are closings. And I sent it out to the processors already. And the biggest thing that I saw on there was communication, where they said that the communication was just horrible. From the loan officer to the processor, they had no idea what was going on.
This situation we ran in with Eric. And those that know Eric know what I'm talking about. It brought something up that made me think of something that may help, and that is milestones. There's too damn much time between these milestones. There's too much time for imaginations to start running wild, and everybody, all parties start getting, and there is no answer to give them. We're waiting for it to come out of underwriting, right? I mean, that's it. And I don't think we're not telling them there was a doc request, docs were received, sit back out for a clarification, received again. I think if there was maybe a spreadsheet or something with every single loan on it and divided by the processors, instead of the loan officer going in there and asking them, when they send out a request, if they just If they just marked it and dated it, and then when they get a response, they marked it and dated it, then Scott wouldn't have to go in there and ask Saeed,
What do you
hey,
mean
when am I
marked
gonna
and
when am I
dated?
gonna hear about this? And then they can go report right back to the realtor. Hey, we just received those docs we were waiting on. And that's not for every loan. This is for the ones that are starting to get a little warm. But if there was something that was like a real time response, instead of the processor just handling it and waiting for the next milestone, actually every step, because that's what we do with Eric. I committed to him. I'm not going to tell you when it hits a milestone. I'm going to tell you every time we ask for something, every time we receive it, and that way you're going to know every little step, if that's what you require, in order to get what we want, which in this case was an extension. But that's to justify it. But I mean, I think instead of somebody walks in and says he's busy, well, it may be 2 hours until they get even able to go over there, and then they don't even get over there. And the next thing you know, the next day has gone by. Or somebody needs to talk to Josh to go in there because they've already gone to Saeed and Saeed didn't give them an answer that was clear enough. And then Josh, maybe the next day before Josh can get to it. When all they really needed to know was that there was a doc request sent out yesterday. That's all they needed to know. And so they could just record it.
Are you talking about like a system like where we see the emails as a save inside folders for each of these?
Yeah, I get
Okay.
copies on every one
Well,
of those
isn't that what? I
But
mean,
it's too hard to
well,
keep
let me
up
ask
with
this:
those
wouldn't
emails.
Asana, the task manager, accomplish this?
Asana? I saw Asana a couple times, but it was
Because
pretty
I would think the
complicated.
task manager would accomplish that, right?
It has a combo log on, like any particular item, or each item, so the last item, you could, as long as people are maintaining it, yeah.
Why don't we implement that then?
Or Velocify, but yeah.
You cut out a lot of the questions that are these direct derail questions.
But
that
isn't
one process.
Asana instant chat? Isn't it like?
Yeah.
Okay,
And it
why
go-
don't?
yeah,
Well, you wouldn't need to do that. Why even have any communication if the processor can just log it and
Well,
that would
it
eliminate.
would be in there. See, that's a task manager. It's good.
Okay.
It's good.
But yeah, I mean, it would just eliminate a lot of the questions, a lot of the frustration.
I think and even if we don't get the API done on that, we should probably still launch that.
Right, okay.
So,
And a key thing, is like, you have some borrowers when the loan's going, like Joe's got one, Padice, and, she sent out an email, and she's the kind of borrower that's really high maintenance.
Yeah.
And you know that
That's
if you
what I'm talking
don't,
about.
if you ignore her, or even though you talked to her the day before, yet she emailed him yesterday, he talked to her the day before that. So they've had a lot of communication, but she's the kind of person that will keep calling and calling and calling until she continues to get the communication she wants. So anyway, I saw an email come out, and what I saw from her was that I saw her about to blow up, and we have to kind of see that coming down the road. But to prevent it from happening is that even if we don't have any new information, is that you call and give an update without, you don't have to give them new information to call them. You can call them and let them know that your file's in underwriting, we expect it out by this date, and once we get it out, we're going to let you know if we need anything else from you. It's something as simple as that. That's what we called her, told her, pretty much, and she was okay with it for the most part, except a few things she wanted to add of her own personal comments. But anyway, it's just those little things, like if documents requested, documents received, you're making those efforts to inform the borrower, oh, your prep's gonna take 20 days, we gotta let you know, so that way they know what's up. But that's how you control the process, and you can grow a pipeline with that. It's very hard. It's very hard to grow a pipeline, be a multi-million-dollar producer if you're not doing that, or your teammate's not doing that. Your LOA or whatever. So you guys have to, even if it's something small, that you're keeping them updated. Hey, I received the documents. How many people send in documents? No one ever sends them a confirmation they got it. That's so annoying, right? Someone faxes you documents and you never tell them you got it. And they're calling you and emailing you looking for them. Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? You should, as soon as you get that fax, you call, I got the fax, just want to let you know. How many of us do that? You do that? Do you look at the documents right when you get them? I do. I look at them, as soon as I see the fax come out, I look at them, scan them, call them, hey, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. And then they say, send it to me right now. It might be at the library, the fax didn't come through, right, Kinko's, so that's a limited window
That's true.
to get them to resend those documents right. You know, so it's important that we take that opportunity while they're transmitting those documents where they just came in to try and get them to resend it correctly. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that type of communication will help prevent issues, and we'll look like rock stars. And not just that, it's like if you guys send out a doc request to an agent, we might CC them, but also just give them a call. Buyer's agent, hey, we just sent a doc request to the borrower. Just want to let you know, give you a heads up. We told them we needed it in 48 hours. They said they were going to comply, but you know, if we don't get it in 40 hours, I'm going to let you know. 48 hours goes by, call the agent. Oh, I haven't got the docs yet. Just want to give you a heads up. If you happen to talk to the borrower, would you let them know we still need them? We're gonna follow up with them too, but you know, it'd help if they hear from you as well. They'll be on it too. That's how you move a loan through. You know what I'm saying? And you control the transaction instead of letting it control you, right?
Justify a extension request.
And if a borrower calls in and says, I just gave notice, they're starting the process, since I just gave notice to my landlord, I gotta be out by this time. Is that an opportunity for anything right there?
Yep.
What type of opportunity? What would you do in this situation?
Make sure they have a plan B in case there's any hiccups in our projected timeline.
Right.
And make sure that, you know, that they know that everything up to that point is certainly estimated. Even the close date is nothing more. That's probably one of the most rough estimates
It's a goal.
that we can give is the projected close date on that contract. So, I mean, sometimes you have to learn things the hard way.
Right.
But once you learn them, then you can start speaking up on it, you know, proactively. That when they start saying, okay, I'm gonna put my notice in. You know, I'm like, no, you may not want to put the notice in just yet. But if you do, just know that you want to have a plan B. That if it doesn't go through, everything is not done by then, you want to have a place where you can maybe crash out over some relative's house for a week or two, if that's the case, because it happens. As opposed to blindly, you know, like I got a guy Means thinking he's gonna be homeless.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, stop talking about being homeless, but be proactive. If it doesn't happen by the end of December, then make sure, if your lease is up, stay with some relatives.
Right.
If you got a relative that could, he looked, he thought about it, called me back the next day and said, I do have a relative that has a big old house that my family can stay there if need be. And I said, if need be, now I feel better about it. You know?
And that's a talk you want to have with somebody when you're pre-qualifying them, you know, or they're out there looking at a house. You have that whole time window to go over things with them, to educate them, to ensure that loan process goes smoothly, right? So that's one of the things you might want to talk about while they're out looking at a home. Hey, just want to give you a heads up. I'm not sure if we talked about this, but just want to remind you that when you're closing on a home, you always want to have a plan B in case your loan doesn't close on time or something comes up. And they're going to say, well, what do you mean? Well, I just throw something out there kind of, well, let's say your appraisal doesn't come in for the value of the house, okay? Then we could have an issue where the seller may not want to lower the price. And that can happen. It can happen from time to time. I'm not saying it will, but things happen that aren't expected. And I wouldn't be doing my job as a professional mortgage loan originator to not educate you on this. So in 2 months from now, you don't have a place to live. Because I would be responsible by not educating you, right? Because that's my responsibility, is to educate you about that. So on your close date, if you miss it, you're not going into a hotel with your kids and putting your shit in a U-Haul. So if there ever comes that point, that's on us. That's because we didn't educate the borrower. You didn't take time to communicate with them about anything that was important. Maybe took their application and threw a loan in, but you don't really deserve to call yourself a mortgage originator. More of like an application taker. So anyone can take an application, but it's developing those skill sets along the way to really build a solid pipeline, and you stay in control of each transaction.
It's like when you go to, I don't know if you guys have ever had a surgery before that, you sign a disclosure that says, hey, there's a possibility that you could die from the surgery. Even if you haven't ever had any major teeth or teeth work done, say, hey, you might die from this. They have you sign, the doctor says you're not going to sue the dentist. So why do you think they do that though? Hey, look, there's a 99% chance. You know, and that's the thing you need to let people know, and that, hey, listen, 90% of our stuff, normally this doesn't happen, but every once in a while things can come up with the appraisal. 90% of the time the house appraises out, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why I've urged you guys to, when you pre-approve somebody, to send your pre-approved video, and go over the do's and don'ts, go over the requirements. You know what I'm saying? Because the thing is that the reason why we're having these conversations is to educate you guys on it, because I don't want to see it. If I see something next month where we've had these conversations and it comes up, I'm going to be really upset. That if I see a deal that went under contract that shouldn't have, or you didn't explain to the customer that they could lose their earnest money, that's why we're having these talks, we're having them over and over and over again, to make sure that this goes away. And so when somebody does a review of our service, it should always be top notch. And I know we can't please everybody, but I think that out of the 60 samples that they pulled, 20% they were all that had the common theme of communication.
Communication and understanding the loan process was the other part of it that I saw. The customers some of them not saying that they didn't really understand the process. Better explain the process. So if you ever go to the dentist or doctor, or for a serious procedure, they just lay down at the table and say, okay, let's go, let's do it. Or they sit down with you, explain the risks, explain the side effects, all that kind of shit.
I did. I gave him the
You know what I'm
freaking
saying? Are you gonna go with
number
the doctor
and
that
the
doesn't
date.
explain anything to you?
I said, you can monitor this thing every day.
And you know what I'm saying? With your
What
life,
could I possibly do?
or with putting your kids' lives in the home buying experience, that's a big deal. It's a serious transaction. Anyway,
Well,
you
you
notice
check
when you
everything
go
too,
into
insured
any
person.
of these situations that you
An insured person would not.
go in, and there was one time my mom had breast cancer. There was a surgeon that we were going to different surgeons, and one surgeon really get that off me. Anyway, some of them were just really, you can tell some were really busy, and some were just didn't take the time to really care to explain how the process worked. But there was one that was just, you could tell he was his profession. It was him. You know what I'm saying?
For the bedside manner.
Bedside manner, but he knew his shit in and out. You know what I'm saying? You could tell just by the way he talked. Every question he was thinking, analytically about, the possible answers and how he conveyed it. The risks that he wasn't offering a guarantee or making promises that he couldn't keep, right? Anyway, it was just when you go through those experiences, you can tell that's a pro. You know what I'm saying? And that's a different experience. Whether you think that a borrower is going to notice that or not, they do. They notice that experience. Whether you go over the fees with them, their down payment, how the MI works on a government loan. I bet you right now, probably 90% of the borrowers in there don't know what the MI is on their loan. They don't know what it is or why it's there. You know what I'm saying? They don't know who gets the money. You know what I'm saying? So, some of those things are important to go over with the borrower. What makes up their total monthly payment? Because at some point they're going to look at it and say, my loan officer never told me that. It's usually in processing when they find out. The processor has to deal with the question. Or when they get their first mortgage statement after closing. What the hell is that? What is this? What is this extra $100 a month? Steven never told me about that. It's taking a little extra time, especially if it's a good customer, to make sure they understand, those different components of the loan. And sometimes they'll ask you the question. So anyway, it's just good stuff. That's it.
Hey, yeah, lastly, this rapid close checklist, it was sent out to you guys. This is something that we can use if we want to expedite the loan process. So there's going to be two different types of pre-approvals that you're going to do. You can do one with a rapid close, and then you can just do one with a traditional income and credit docs. This one, if you get all of this up front, and then you're building out your red light checklist and Velocify, so that way, if you have somebody that wants to go under contract faster, this will help to streamline the process. And so each one of you guys will send this. I would encourage you to have all your borrowers do this. Not all of them will. Some of them want to kind of, kind of ladder out or scale in their documents to you. But this is going to be a lot more efficient if they can get all this stuff in, and obviously before anyone goes under contract, they have to have all their stuff in, but some people may not want to get all this at the time of pre-approval, and some people may already have these things. So, but under no circumstance can anyone go under contract until we have all of the items, but we have to make sure that, we give the customer the option if they want to. You may have somebody that wants to go under contract right away, and you may have some people that are just house shopping, and they want to get pre-approved, and so whatever the case is, we have to make sure that we have all the documentation, and this will just help to offer a faster process if they want to, or they are able to send in all their documentation.
The LOs are getting this, and then
Yeah.
and the LOAs are still getting. What I see that's left?
Huh?
The LOAs are getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're gonna get all that up front and then put it in the folder and then, to give to LOA.
But the LOAs are getting the rest.
Right.
We may need to, we might wanna, for the beginning, we might wanna rename this from Rapid to,
Yeah.
might wanna call it something else. I'm not saying that it won't
Well,
be, I'm not saying we're not gonna be able to close it rapidly, but, and it really depends on the loan, it just, I don't want them to give them the wrong idea.
Like it's gonna be faster than normal.
I don't want them to think it's gonna be like in a week.
No,
idea
it's
of
not
it-
saying that.
The idea of it is to do a pre-underwrite before they even get under contract.
Right.
So that way,
Whoa. A pre-underwrite? I asked you about that a minute ago, and you said no.
What do you mean?
We're gonna send this to underwriting?
No, we're not saying it's underwriting.
no, it's gonna have
Well, I mean,
like,
there's companies that do
He said
that.
like a pre-underwrite.
it's gonna be
Oh,
like a
okay.
pre-underwrite. So basically, if it's a solid deal, they got all their files in. Obviously, we're gonna ask that they're reviewed. If somebody gives you all the documents like that, do a light scrub. Make sure if in the LOEs and all that need to be done, all that can be majority done before they even go on the contract. That way the contract come in, and how I'm selling is this. That way your most of your stuff is done, 80% done up front. That way by the time your contract come in, we can do a review, make sure there's nothing else that's not needed, make sure everything's updated, and then we'll clear it to go into processing. And that can take anywhere from 25 to 45 business days.
Like, let me give you an example. Joe had a loan today, a contract to look at. The guy has an account on dispute. The contract's already in. The close date is for the end of January, I think. For McNamara, is it
New York.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it's
Is it the end of January?
the close date is the end of December, but we already.
Oh, end of
mentioned
December,
that
yeah.
It's not that was.
Right.
They wrote up
But let me
4
just,
weeks ago.
No, right. But I
Yeah.
want to give you the example here. The guy has a account dispute on credit, and I said, obviously we need to extend, and they're fine with extending. But the thing is, like, let's say that was done prior to him going under contract, then maybe you wouldn't need as long as the extension or close date. You see what I'm saying? So it depends on when you get these items. Is the point that you have to. So if you want to close faster, you get all that stuff up front. So if you don't want to close faster and it's going to take longer, like if you go to Bank of America, they may only ask for tax returns and W-2s and pay stubs, where that's a 60-day close. Well, if you get all this to me right now, I can probably close you in 45 days.
Well, then that second step that I've started giving to a couple people, it's okay if I still do that, because that's basically the same thing. It's just breaking it into two parts to where some people would not get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think
But
that's
it's-
fine.
Okay, but I'm not calling it. I'm not. But just so I'm
You
clear.
can call it rapid checklist if you want, but
When it gets to processing though, there's no higher priority to that loan, except that it's complete.
How about we call it the sure close checklist? Huh?
That's the same they're gonna close.
Sure. How about we call it the
Checklist.
close.
How about we call it?
How about we take rapid close checklist off? We just call this the regular checklist. And we make this should be. You should have all this in. If you don't have all this done by the contract comes in, you got a problem. So you should have all this. You should have all this in.
That was doing your job.
That sounds good to me. That way we can assure we don't have any issues. We just call this a regular check. What do you think, Nick? Nick's down.
It's regular checklist, it's true.
I mean, seriously though, if you,
with us, man?
What do you guys want to do?
I ain't with that.
When a contract comes in, what do you want to do? You want to wait another 2 weeks before you send it in, or you want to turn it into processing within a couple days?
When
and close it in
when
2
I
weeks?
reviewed your loans today, I told you when I want to see. I'm going to follow up to make sure those loans are processing by next week.
One of the things you probably want to add to this is funds to close. Like prior to contract coming in, we need to see that that's in the account.
There's info, there's a sheet in the packet I'm gonna give y'all, and one of them is verification, that you have the funds to close, where the funds are, and then they're signing the date at the bottom.
And then you guys got bank statements under income. Probably put that under retirement. Instead of retirement, put assets, and then move gift stuff maybe under assets. What I would do, maybe. But I like the list. I think you guys did a really good job in putting this thing together.
Good job, Steve.
Did you do that?
Stephen and David did, yeah.
David,
Yeah, it was looking really nice. Thought it was the most beautiful checklist I've ever seen.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my picture, my bad.
You should see it on the computer. It was beautiful. It was like,
It is.
it was like professional, man. I was like, who did this?
Yeah, really. Okay, one last thing, guys. Has everyone met Waldina? She's our new hire candidate. And so, would you please stand up? I would like for all you guys to say hi to her. If you have any questions, want to ask her, we're considering to bring her in and have her start next week. And so she's a realtor. Are you with Keller Williams right now?
Huh?
Okay. So she's with Keller Williams right now, and she wants to get into the mortgage side. Please, somebody fire a dart at her. So somebody tell her something or say something to her. See if you think you guys have been here for a little bit. Do you think that she has what it takes to make it?
You want to stop the recording? You want to stop the recording?
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, I think we're done with it.
Why are you wanting to get into the mortgage side?